and welcome to the Open Book channel. My name is Oleander, your designated open book, and this is where I share my journey as an author, talk about the craft of writing, the business of being a content creator, and occasionally review really good books. I'm currently doing a little series where I rebrand older releases under my defunct pen name to see whether I can improve their exposure through better fitting genre expectations and trying new marketing things. I bought Publisher Rocket in hopes of using it to boost SEO type of back-end stuff with keywords and categories. My first exposure to it didn't go quite so well. Information on other books is useful to you and your book if you are releasing something similar. Upon my first attempts at using Publisher Rocket, however, the results I got didn't seem applicable to me and were therefore not very helpful. In this video, I will go over what I learned about Publisher Rocket after a bit more time with it, and go over whether I truly think it's necessary, at least for me. First, I looked up I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, because I felt as though its portrayal of how hard it is to process the manipulative habits of someone we love and the contradictory actions that we make towards our best interest because of that was applicable to the sunk heart fallacy. The problem with the results I got was that I'm Glad My Mom Died was so popular that it is its own top search results. Everyone was just searching for the book and author, not related topics. The whole first page of reverse search results were all variations of I'm Glad My Mom Died book and book by Janet McCurdy, and so on. The second page was slightly more diverse, although it showed that this whole function is extremely flawed. Some search results made sense, like I'm a bad mom, or I think my mom hates me, but others, although they yielded this book as a result to customers, are entirely contradictory to the audience of the book. For example, gift for my mom is hilariously ironic. You should not be gifting this book to your mom. If they're a good mom, anyway. So although I get the stats that this ranked really high for this search term, knowing that the average monthly earnings of top books that rank in that is $39,594, or that it's searched 8,575 times a month, isn't applicable to this book, actually. Publisher Rocket is a tool that requires a lot of personal ability to discern the relevance of the statistics you're given. This was not a great example for me to try and pull information from, because its use of the word mom and all associated topics and genres that keyword can lead to overpowered the rankings. However, this was likewise true for the other title's words. Many variations of I died came up, specifically in ways that you would think someone is searching for a mystery thriller title instead. My faith in the keyword usefulness was admittedly shaken by my first deep dive. As much as it was a bad experience, many of the results showed that, well, keyword searches are often pretty inapplicable to the content that ends up ranking high in it. But they're also sometimes illegible or unhinged. Some of them are really funny, like, I mom so hard, and God help me, I'm a young dad. But in that, what people are going to search can be hard to predict in its usefulness if the majority of how they find things isn't what they were actually looking for. And then, on the other hand, sometimes they're so specific you could never predict that. Heartbreaking adult nonfiction chapter books about child abuse sells over 8K a month. And this exceptionally specific, famous title that is literally exactly that isn't even ranking well in it. I'm Glad My Mom Died is a really strong title with built-in SEO. That does not help me, as the titles of the Bleeding Heart series are not direct in that way. The sunk heart fallacy is a play on the term sunk cost fallacy, but isn't applicable to anyone searching for that. Strangling Heartstrings has strangling in it, but people searching for commentary on codependent relationships or suicidal partners aren't going to focus on alternative words related to hanging oneself. Not to get dark there, but strangling won't be their first search unless they're looking to do that themselves, which is not what I mean to provide information on or incentive to do. And heart-shaped hands is a cute gesture, but in itself is antiquated. It's not as direct as other common affectionate gestures that romantics might be searching for. TLDR, my titles are not helping me, and there's nothing that I can do about that at this point. They've already been published, so I need to find matches to compare them to that aren't so obvious in their title as to what they're about. So my strategy for the latter two installments will be to lean into extrapolations of the core content. I should be listing in the keywords what they're about that isn't explicitly said in the book. For example, TSHF technically talks about complex post-traumatic stress disorder, but it doesn't say that term. It just shows how that developed in the events of the book. Secondly, I need to be thinking about what others would search for if they want to find these books, since the titles aren't self-explanatory. For SHS, that would be someone researching, how do I know if my relationship is codependent? To give Publisher Rocket a shot from another angle, I went to the keyword search function and typed in the short form of these sort of search prompts to see how they were being written long form by others. I put in codependent and got pretty expected results. Something that stuck out was that a lot of them also said codependent no more. That seemed like a good lead, and is applicable to my book as well, but upon searching it, that's just the title of another book. Codependent No More by Melody Beattie. It's dominating the search results here. I decided to take my core keyword, codependent, to the competition analyzer to see the market of what's selling using that also. And my book doesn't fit into the look of these ones at all, because they're nonfiction self-help, whereas mine is creative nonfiction and prose. It doesn't fit in, and it never will. And if I catered to the others in the competing keyword, I'm sure I'd just make people mad about mismarketing expectations. And, maybe these two are just too niche, being nonfiction and prose. Maybe I could get some useful info for Heart-Shaped Hands, as it is generally just a book of love poems, and there's lots of those out there. I decided to try a rupee car book to see if it sparked anything useful to use. It is applicable to me to prioritize poem books women or love poem book, I guess, although I have no idea what Climate Whitney Hansen has to do with anything in this example, and I don't care anymore. I'm not one of those writers that complains about having to market myself. Although I don't love it, and it's not easy, and I don't do it very often or well, I accept its usefulness. Being better at social media should in turn net more engagement, interest, and sales. Likewise, having killer SEO, keywords, and category optimization can and will improve your book sales. I can see Publisher Rocket's usefulness to books suited to that implementation, but mine just aren't. I hate to say it because I don't want to come off like my books are so special. They're not. If anything, they're infuriatingly uninteresting to the general masses, which makes them inapplicable to these types of tools and strategies. It's not just this series, though, as I'm sure that I'll write something someday with much wider appeal. I just don't find all this terribly helpful. 90% of this information is inapplicable, even irrelevant to the book it's actually about. In sorting through all of it to find a gem that might guide me in being similar to other popular titles is only really useful if I were doing this beforehand. My book is already written, not to market, so that's just what it is. No amount of fan dangling will change the content, and there's nothing else popular like it. And let me stress the word popular there. If anything, Publisher Rocket taught me that what search terms things rank in has very little to do with its intended audience. And in that, Publisher Rocket isn't helping me come up with keywords, really. Publisher Rocket hasn't read my book. It doesn't know what they're about. So, as much as it can be useful to put these things in keyword searches and get stats, it doesn't help me to know to include or analyze the word codependent itself. I learned more about what is getting searched that I wouldn't want my book to come up from than anything, and that's an infinite amount of possibilities out of my control. If the SEO engine deems that my book is tangentially related to something, no matter how contradictory to the actual audience, there's not really anything I can do about it. I know I'm being dismissive of the power of categories and keywords, but I also believe that a lot of people are overthinking it. Unless you are trope marketing or trying to be the top seller in a specific niche, like you wrote this to be that, not just that you wrote it to write, your back end doesn't need to be overcomplicated. I think it's awesome for all authors out there that find a keyword that just makes their book pop. But I feel as though I'm much more capable of stumbling upon that organically than wasting my time poring over statistics. Just the literal amount of time and effort required to weed out what is useful among all this information feels like time that would be better spent writing. Or to be actively looking for my niche audience rather than trying to optimize my books for a wider audience, which is what I will try next instead. Publisher Rocket just isn't for me. And seeing as I don't personally feel a use for it, I will be refunding it and using that money towards ads instead. If you have and use Publisher Rocket, feel free to let me know how you like it and why. It didn't compute for me, but I'm sure there's loads of people out there who love spreadsheets that get a real kick out of this sort of data and making correlations between keywords and sales. I just can't get behind it. There's other things that I'd like to do with my time, which may just be hubris, but I also think that some forms of writing benefit a lot more from this marketing approach, and mine just isn't one of them. As always, thank you for watching. If you want to support me, there's links to my socials in the description below, and I'll see you in the next video where I try another way to get more eyes on these books. Bye.